Hey YouTube, it's Dimitri, and today we're going to talk about something that's kind of been on my mind for a while. I recently had this great coffee interview with a student. This is the second time I've met up with them. They're just thrilling to talk to. They have all these quantitative topics and studies, and we get to talk about all kinds of cool things together, and it's great. But one of the things when we started talking about was when you have a student, right, and you're going through applications, it's frustrating when people throw out your resume because you don't have that target school, that target audience on your resume. And so I know the feeling, right? You're a student, you went to some school, it's not like the biggest school, it's not a target school. I understand. I mean, I went to Washington State University, I absolutely loved it. It was a great education. I have a business background with emphasis in finance, and I had a minor in economics, and it was amazing. It was probably like the best experience I could have asked for. It was cheap, it was affordable, and yet a lot of banks wouldn't even interview me, they wouldn't call me, they wouldn't consider me because I didn't have, the Ivy League or the top tier schools or the business schools with the top 25 rankings and whatnot. And so the student asked me, he's like, Dimitri, it's frustrating, right? You have this resume, you submit it, you have the skills, you have the background, you're super motivated, you're driven, and yet they just don't look at the resume and you can't get callbacks. And so I'm thinking about this in my head there's this video I've been wanting to make on this. And the thing is that it goes down to more or less the core of this channel, which is how do I help basically the best people get ahead while not making it more difficult by essentially helping people that are unqualified disguise themselves as being qualified. And why I say this is because I have the video why you're not a quant. It's a huge frustration, and part of this comes down to a lot of quants, so real true quants. They go out and they spend $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 for a master's degree. They spend a year and a half, sometimes a year, up to 2 years, and they're diving in deep, going through mathematics, learning all this theories, dedicating their life and soul to this, 40, 50 hours a week, which is not the norm for grad students, trust me. And so you're diving into this and you're doing all this work and you finish the degree and you're bright and you're brilliant, and then you go to apply and you realize that every single person applying for this job is claiming to be, a financial engineer, or they're claiming to be a quant, or they're claiming to be a data science now. And the issue is 99.9% of these aren't quants. They're not data scientists, they're not financial engineers, they don't have the skills, they don't have the abilities. And so people are I don't get it. I spent all this money, I spent all this time, I'm really trying to get a job, I just can't get a job. And so the reason is that HR's job, so yes, human resources, recruiters, all that stuff, their job is extremely difficult. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. There's been a lot of crap on LinkedIn about, recruiters suck and they're bad. Yeah, I've been screwed by recruiters. Yeah, there's a bunch of crappy recruiters out there, but it's like anything. There's great recruiters, average recruiters, and there's just crap recruiters that don't do their jobs very well, and they're out to make a quick buck. But at the end of the day, their job is how do you sort the true quality candidates from the non-quality candidates? And this comes down to not even just quants, guys. If you're hiring someone to do marketing or a PR person or a sociologist or psychologist, or I don't know, you're hiring for anything. It doesn't matter. It's hard to find people that are just really qualified. And the reason, especially in the quant world here, so going back just to quantum as I like to call it, right, is that people go on their resumes and they all just list the exact same skill sets. And I think this is hugely detrimental in the fact that you have some candidates, say candidate A. And candidate A went out, they got an amazing degree, it's a master's degree, it's very quantitative, the school's very good, but it's not a target school, but they have all the skills and the abilities, they've done internships and everything else, they look amazing. You have candidate B, and they list, they have the exact same skills, they don't have the school, they have, they list some degree that looks really good though from a decent school, and then what happens, you interview the two. So if you had both resumes, you interviewed them. Candidate A is very down to earth, they have the abilities, the skills, they went through the programs, you're asking about the coursework they took, you're asking about specific details and statistics and mathematics and derivative pricing theory, and you're asking all these detailed questions. So in data science, you're asking about different algorithms they're using and how they clean data and the processing and basically how they get all the data processed correctly. So it's very detailed and they have a lot of good information. Then you interview candidate B and you find out that A, the degree they listed isn't a real degree. Which I've had happen many times. It is a degree, but it's just not what they listed it to be. 3, a lot of the skills they all listed on there, they didn't learn. They didn't learn them through grad school. They went online, they took some quick, $20 Udemy or Coursera course, so they did the free version. They went on there and they just like took this quick course. It gave them a general overview of like, oh, machine learning, oh, it's great and wonderful. Or like, oh, financial derivative products, here's the quick little Black-Scholes formula, just write in the formula. And these people out there are like, oh, Dimitri, I'm a quant, I'm a data scientist, I'm a financial engineer. But you're not. You're not a quant, you're not a data scientist. You're essentially ruining the job pool for all these candidate A's. They're just amazing, stellar candidates. And again, these candidates don't have to go to target schools, they don't have to all this amazing background, but they really, really learn the information. And so, as a recruiter, it makes it like impossible to split these two. And so the easiest way we do this, right, is just look at academic programs. So candidate A went to a better program than candidate B, bam, you can split people, you can get down to this population. But the issue is that when you do that, you're throwing out a ton of really, really good candidates. And so as a recruiter, it's like, how do you extract the best candidates out of the pool of people that are applying, while also avoiding all these really, really crappy candidates that have like these pseudo degrees and like this fake nonsensical skills they list on the resume. And so this comes down to kind of my final point of the video, which is writing a resume is crucial because this defines who you are. This splits you away from, the not so good candidates. And yet learning how to write a good resume is difficult because literally every single person out there is going to write R, Python, neural networks, random forest, call options, Black-Scholes. Like they're just going to throw all these buzzwords out there and throw it on the resume. They're going to throw, oh, I'm a physicist, therefore I'm a financial engineer, right? I mean, it's hysterical, but everyone throws it on there and it makes it hard to separate these candidates. And so I'm strongly against more or less just separating candidates by academic program. But the issue is how do you really nail down good candidates? And one of these methods I would like to kind of promote for you guys is go out there and make a name for yourself. Go out there and network, talk to people, get involved in the industry. You get better jobs if you know people in the industry, you can talk to people in the industry, because then those people in the industry realize you're really smart, you're bright, you have a great background, You're not just out there like saying you learned all this stuff and then not actually knowing it. And so networking is key. Second one is promoting content. So I make all these YouTube videos, right? And my goal is to help you. But like a secondary benefit of this is that even though I make all these videos for you, my name gets out there. People know who I am. People start realizing like, oh, Dimitri Bianco, right? He's that quant guy. He works in risk management. He does data analytics, right? He's that guy that is really bright. So for me, it's easier to get a job because people know who I am. But if you're an amazing stellar candidate, like that candidate I was talking to over the weekend, and you don't publish content or you don't have a way to get yourself in front of other people, no one knows if you're really a great candidate or not a great candidate. And a lot of this thing comes down to the other thing, which people think, well, Dimitri, if you just accepted all the resumes and interviewed everybody, then you could talk to them and narrow them down. That's true, you could. But the problem is you have hundreds and hundreds of applications. So I mean, think about like big banks like Goldman Sachs or Lazards or, Bank of America, for example, or Citi. Like a lot of people want to work here. And so if you, for example, are hiring students, students that apply, there's hundreds of students applying. You can't interview all of them. There's not enough time. And so figuring out how to separate the good candidates from the bad candidates is difficult. But I think if you realize that from a student perspective, you work on networking, you really work on writing that quality resume and figuring out how to convey to an employer that you have great value and that you actually know the materials in the resumes and in the interviews and in your networking. You'll be able to easily separate yourself from all the wannabe quants and the wannabe data scientists and the wannabe financial engineers out there, because you'll really nail down like who you are. You'll have this bigger and better portfolio of network contacts and content. Like just write articles. Like I would encourage you guys to go out and write articles on LinkedIn. And if you do, like seriously, share it with me. I'd love to read what you guys have to write. Make YouTube videos like I make, or just network and talk to alumni at your school. Do informational interviews. Figure out what they do for their job, if they like it, if they don't like it. But the moral of the story here is that it's very, very hard to separate good candidates and bad candidates. And it's like extremely frustrating when you have people out there pretending to be something that they're not. And I think a lot of this too is the fact that they don't know they're pretending. And I say this because I've seen people that like come into me like, Dimitri, I'm a quant. And I go, okay, great. So like, I mean, what school did you go to? So I start getting like your background and I start talking about topics. And I want to find like what you like, what you're good at. Like, I'm not going to be the guy that goes out and questions you and is like, oh, you must know like these 10 things to be a quant. I want to know, what are you working on? What are your projects? What are your interests? What are your hobbies? Why are you so interested in these topics? How much do you know? Like, I'm going to start digging into like you and what you know to see how smart you are. And yet a lot of these people that go, Dimitri, I'm a quant. I have a STEM degree. Like, they're like frustrated with me. I look at them and I go, no, you're not. You don't have a clue what you're talking about. And it comes down to this fact that like, they just aren't experts. They don't really understand the depth required, I guess, to have more or less my quant designation. I mean, you can say you're a quant, that's fine. But most recruiters, most companies hiring that are listing off these quant fields used to be very strict. Now it's starting to become this very loose term. I think quant in a general term has lost a lot of meaning. A data scientist, like, it's awesome. I love data science. I've been working a lot with it. I've been learning, talking to professionals. And yet data science is just getting watered down to nothing, just like the word quant, because every single person is claiming to be a quant. And again, going back to this, I think it's because people get a degree. It's a good degree for what you're trying to do with it, but the reality is you're not hitting the marks that somebody at like a top university is, or you're not hitting the marks that somebody with like a PhD or a master's, even from just like good school. So good school doesn't necessarily mean it's high ranked, but if they have a good program, that degree is worth a lot of money. But the issue is you have a lot of people that take like these generic, like, oh, I took some math, I took some finance, I took some generic Black-Scholes. I think that's one of the biggest gripes with me, is when people claim to be a quant, is they go, oh, Dimitri, I know the Black-Scholes. Big deal. Which version of the Black-Scholes? And they look at you and go, what do you mean which version? They go, well, can you explain it to me? And then they always pull out, you know, like the generic, like, closed form solution that you can implement in Excel, and they just like knock out this pretty little equation. Oh, look, Black-Scholes. And that's fine. I mean, that's good. That's good you learned it. It's good you understand what an option is and whatever, but you can't price options and exotic options. You have no clue how you get from, like, for example, the CAPM all the way to the Black-Scholes and the derivation. The amount of math, like Ito's lemma, if you don't know Ito's lemma, you can't get to the Black-Scholes, but yet people don't realize that when they don't have the education, the layering. They don't really understand where the bar is for quantitative. And so that's kind of part of the problem, is people are saying, I'm a quant, I'm a data scientist, but the stick that they're measuring with is not the same stick that you're measuring with. And so they are definitely more quantitative than the people they know, or they're more quantitative than the people around them, or they're more analytical. You know, they have more of some skill than other people they're essentially in this group with, but they're not comparing themselves to, you know, like the very, very top elite people. And even as myself, so just to put this out here, because a lot of people say, oh, Dimitri, you're so arrogant and you're so into yourself about quants and financial engineering. I consider myself like a bottom end quant, guys. Like, I struggle to get through all this. Like, I struggled through grad school for the math, and yet I get to work, I get to, you know, academic communities, I get talking to different professionals, and I start going through like the math, and I'm trying to figure out, you know, exactly how these things nail down. And yet people look at me like, well, why are you doing the math? Why are you trying to get into this? And even though I consider myself like a baby quant, like I still have a ton of space to go. There's just so many people that don't have that grasp. And so trying to figure out where you are, like, I'm definitely by no means like the ultimate quant or anything. I'm nowhere near that. But guys, again, the quant definition that I like to use is that you are essentially working towards being that. Like, there's no end goal. You're always improving and like learning. And like 5 years ago in grad school, everything was focused on like, oh, derivatives and, you know, stochastic calculus and all this other stuff. And that was financial engineering. And now we're in 2018, you know, data science is where it's at. So if you have like that financial engineering degree, you're having to learn all this new stuff to get to data science. And when you get from data science, you know, you're gonna have to learn from data science and keep going into like deep learning, and there's gonna be stuff after that. And so, you know, learning to really talk about your field, learning to be excited will help you separate yourself from like good candidates and bad candidates. I know I've deviated a little bit here, but I'm trying to add some light onto why it's so hard to be a recruiter. Why you're not getting a job a lot of times is that you're not conveying your value. And so people are just taking you as like this fake quant or someone that doesn't have enough experience. So definitely prepare, write good resumes, get out there, network, and write content. But that's kind of my tips for you guys. I appreciate you guys watching. If you like this channel, don't forget to subscribe below, hit the little bell button for weekly updates, and as always, until next time.